the soft gulling sounds of our 8-month-old son Leo usually brought a wave of warmth to my chest, but today as I held him in my arms that warmth was replaced by a chilling emptiness. My wife, Clara, was perched on the edge of the floral sofa, her eyes, usually pools of affection, now glued to Leo with an almost desperate intensity. "Look at our little man," she said, reaching out to stroke his doughy hair. The word "our" grated on me, a jagged piece of glass lodged in my throat. It was a word I'd once cherished, a symbol of the life we had built together, but now it was a mocking reminder of the betrayal I was about to expose. We were in my parents' living room, a space that had always felt like a safe haven. Gathered here today were my parents, Clara's parents, and her younger sister Anna. The air was thick with unspoken tension. Everyone knew something was amiss. The usual festive family get-together replaced by a strained, unnatural cal. They were all waiting for something, but none of them knew just how much. The foundation of our reality was about to crumble. Farah shifted uncomfortably, her eyes darting around the room. "Is everything okay, David?" she asked, her voice a little too high. "You've been so quiet all day." I looked down at Leo, his innocent face a stark contrast to the turmoil within me. He was blissfully unaware of the storm raging around him that was perhaps the cruelest part, the fact that I brought a child into a life that was predicated on a lie. I took a deep breath, the weight of the truth pressing down on my lungs. "No, Clara," I said, my voice low and controlled. "Everything is not okay." I carefully handed Leo to my mother, who took him with a worried look and stood up. A mamp possessed, I walked to the mahogany side table and picked up the sealed envelope I had placed there earlier. The crisp white paper seemed to hum with its secret, an accusation ready to be made. "These came in the mail this morning," I stated, holding up the envelope. "There, the results of a paternity test." Clara's face paled, her hand flew to her throat, her eyes wide with a fear that could not be concealed. I tore the envelope open, the sound echoing in the unly silent room. I pulled out the single sheet of paper, the stark black lettering of the DNA results feeling like a slab to the face, and handed it to her. Far took the paper, her hands trembling, the color drained from her face as she scanned the document, her breath hitched in her throat. The room waited, not daring to breathe, each of them an unwitting character in a play they had no idea they were performing. After what felt like an eternity, she finally looked up, her eyes wet with unshed tears. This can't be right," she stammered, her voice barely a whisper. "Oh, I assure you it's right," I said, my voice hard. "According to these results, Leo is not my son." The silence that followed was deafening. The gasp from Clara's mother was barely a rustle in the sudden vacuum. My own mother put a protective arm around Leo, glaring at Clara with a silent rage I'd never seen before. Far's father looked like he had aged a decade. Her sister Margaret stared at her with such disdain that Clara had to look away. I watched as the carefully constructed facade of our marriage, of our lives, crumbled into dust around us. Who is his father?" Clara choked out, her eyes pleading with me, but I offered no comfort. My heart had been ripped out long ago. It was not my turn to soothe that, I said, my gaze locking onto hers as a question you're going to have to answer, and you can start with why you thought you could get away with this. I didn't need to explain. The implication hung in the air, thick and heavy. She began to sob, her carefully constructed world collapsing around her. I didn't mean to," she wailed. "It just happened." The words were so cliché, so expected, that they felt like an insult to my intelligence. "It just happened," I repeated, my voice rising. "A baby, Clara. This wasn't some drunken mistake at a party. This was months of lies, of deceit. You brought another man's child into our home, into my life, and you had the gall to call him ours." The anger that had been simmering inside me finally boiled over. I felt a surge of rage so potent that I wanted to destroy something, anything. I took a step closer to her, my voice a low growl. "Pack your things," I said, pointing towards the door. "You're leaving." Clara's eyes widened, a mix of shock and terror washing over her face. "Where am I supposed to go?" she asked, her voice trembling. "I don't care where you go," I said, my voice devoid of any warmth. "And take him with you." I gestured to Leo, who was now squirming in my mother's arms. But David, he's just a baby," Clara stammered, tears streaming down her face. "He's not my baby," I corrected her coldly. "He's the product of your betrayal, and I want neither of you in my house." The room remained silent. My parents and Clara's parents looked on in stunned silence. No one had expected me to be so callous, but they had no idea of the depth of my pain, of the hurt that had burrowed its way into the marrow of my bones. I wanted them gone, both of them. Far clearly understanding that I was not going to change, my mind began to pack her bags, her sobs becoming louder and more frantic. My mother, despite the look of horror on her face, gently handed Leo back to Clara. I felt a moment of something akin to a pang, but I quickly dismissed it. He was not my son, and I was done with pretending he was. As Clara struggled to put Leo into his carrier, I walked over to the door and opened it wide, waiting for them to leave. Her parents and sister stood in silence, unable to look me in the eye. I had become a stranger in their eyes, someone they no longer recognized. I did not care. As Clara finally walked out the door, her face a mask of despair, I slammed it shut behind her, the sound echoing in the now empty house. My parents walked up to me, their faces edged with concern. "David, are you sure you're doing the right thing?" my mother asked, her voice full of worry. "Absolutely," I said, my voice calm and resolute. "I'm taking back my life." I didn't look back. As I walked away from them, I got into my car and drove off, my mind made up. I needed to face this man, the man who had slept with my wife and fathered a child I thought was mine. I drove straight to the gym. I found him in the weight room. I confronted him, and the rage I felt was palpable, and it ended in the same brutal beatdown I had envisioned. I left him there, a bloody mess, a shell of the arrogant man he had been. I went to the police station and turned myself in.